Well, the mics are back on, and this is Radio Entrepreneurs. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Davis, also CEO, founder of MAGE LLC, and we are streaming more stories than ever before with one why, because we have more viewers than ever before. With the change of the economy, our viewership is up over 40%, and we hope we can continue to satisfy our listeners with stories about how to deal with this economy. Dealing with this economy is a concern for everybody in a time of dramatic change, and HR consulting is critical to that change. And I'm glad to have on Megan Taylor, HR consultant and attorney at Taylor HR Group. Welcome back.
Thanks very much. Nice to see you again.
Good. So tell us what's happening in your world. I'm sure you're quite busy.
It's rather crazy, and it's a moving target. It feels like almost every day there's yet more guidance, more changes, more information. So this is really a challenging time for small employers because there's so much information, and they really need to focus on what they can do to bring employees back and how to be compliant in this new environment.
You want to give us some examples?
Sure. So let's start with Monday. So Monday in Massachusetts, Governor Baker issued a lot of information about reopening Massachusetts businesses. So people should really take a look at the Massachusetts.gov website. There are guidances on how to open offices, manufacturing, hair salons, all of that. There's a really vast amount of information, but there are also checklists there that people can go and look at to see how they can be compliant. Especially, there are new mandatory safety posters that are on the website that people need to post. Also, this is true in other states as well, so certainly check with your local state government because everybody is actually, I think, largely being very proactive in getting information out. So Monday, all of that information came out. And now I'm helping clients deal with returning to work in these new constraints about percentages of people that they can bring back, face coverings in the workplace, all of that. It's a minefield.
I bet. Are you seeing companies mishandling it at all?
Well, mishandling the current information, no, because I think it's all new. What I think people may have not done well is how they separated from employees back at the end of March or beginning of April, when they were furloughing and laying people off. They were confused about whether or not they had to pay out accrued paid time off and things like that. So I really recommend that people sort of look back at how they handled that separation 5 or 6 weeks ago and make sure that next time, because unfortunately there may be another time in the future where they may have to have other layoffs, etc. They want to make sure that they know how to do it properly and learn from whatever missteps they may have fallen into 5 or 6 weeks ago. I think this is really a call to action for people to pay attention to HR, make sure they understand what they need to do when they separate from employees, because this is an ever-changing environment.
Do you think small employers have a false sense of security now that they've decided not to audit firms under $2 million on a PPP loan?
Well, there's the PPP, which, yes, maybe they have a false sense of security on that. They also, I think, mostly are actually quite afraid of bringing people back in the workplace. I've heard lots of concerns from employers like, what if I have someone that doesn't have a COVID-related valid claim for leave, but they're afraid to come back in the workplace? They just don't want to come back, but we need them to come back. They've worked remotely, sure, for the past several weeks, but we need boots on the ground for some of these roles. And I think rather than having a false sense of security, what I'm hearing from a lot of businesses, they're actually quite concerned, and they don't know how to address that employee that maybe they feel is being unrealistic in saying they're afraid to come back. Maybe they have a legitimate issue, and that opens up the whole new area of paid federal leave that will applies to small employers, which of course they never had the same kind of requirements before. So the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, the FFCRA, does require small employers under 500 employees to provide paid sick and extended family leave in most cases for certain buckets of people. So, you need your FFCRA poster. You need to make sure you're setting up a system for leave requests when someone calls you and says, I'm sick or my spouse is sick, I can't come to work. I think employers need to be much more proactive than they've ever been before about how to integrate different leave, different requests for accommodation under the ADA. Um, it's really complicated now. And so people need to be proactive so they can get their head around all of their requirements and obligations.
Now, I'm not going to pretend to know your category even as close as you do, but uh, do employers right now, when they're bringing people back to work under a new set of rules, have to immediately change their employee manual, personnel manual, and then get a sign off on it immediately?
Absolutely. Well, if not day one, very soon thereafter. Absolutely. The handbook should be updated to deal with these new leave requirements. How are you even going to let people take their regular vacation that they haven't had a chance to take so far this year? People also need to look at the remote work policies, which they maybe never really had before, but now they have remote workers, and some of them are going to continue perhaps to work remotely. They should have a very clear remote work policy covering things like data. How are your employees accessing your data from their home office? Are people remembering that your harassment and discrimination policies apply to them, even if they're at home and in sweatpants and they feel very relaxed and in talking to their coworkers, they still need to comply, with the harassment and discrimination policies. So they absolutely, all employees should look at their handbook, update security plans, like a written information security plan, which they must have in Massachusetts, update remote work policies, and communicate this to employees. I mean, I think it's really important now in this environment to really take the opportunity to communicate why things are changing. They may be changing only temporarily. When you think it might change, you don't know when it will change, but rest assured that we'll be in contact when we do have to change that policy or this policy. Really, employers need to step up and be much more proactive and communicative than they may have ever been before. And they have to watch out for things like, say I have an employee who's been working remotely from her ski house in New Hampshire, and now she's going to permanently work remotely from her ski house in New Hampshire. Well, now you have an employee in New Hampshire and you have to comply with payroll and local tax requirements. So I think it's important for employers to really maybe have a team, have a COVID response team who can help address these issues, but certainly look at how are we compliant now, where are the exposures, because now the landscape is very, very different.
Oh my God, you have my brain flying. I can think of somebody who said to me that my employer is going to want me to go back to the office. I don't want to go back to the office. And then I can think of employers who said to me, I don't have time right now, Jeffrey, to redo my manuals. I don't have the money right now to redo my manuals. And then there's the whole issue around having an HR consultant do it. And then you're lucky. I think you're one of the better ones. You have both hats on. You're an HR consultant, but you're an attorney. And then they say, I especially don't want to talk to my attorney right now. And I say to them, you know what? You got to get this right. You can't get it wrong. So there's so many
Exactly.
issues you brought up as you were talking to me.
I fear that if employers say, well, I just can't get the right resource because I can't afford it, it might be penny wise and pound foolish, because there are going to be exposures as an employer that they've never contemplated before. And not simple things, the ADA was never simple, but a lot of employers never paid a lot of attention to that if you're a small organization. Now there are EEC, EOC guidelines on employees who might be more susceptible to develop COVID-19. You have an underlying pulmonary condition or an underlying chronic medical condition, or you're over 65. Now you have to think about that employee and consider, do I have to engage in an interactive dialogue about the request? So my fear is that employers will sort of say, oh, I just want to get my widget factory up and running and start making money again, but they might step off the rails a bit and by not taking care of the compliance and all of these other issues.
I'm sure I could talk to you for a half hour on this or an hour, but we've been speaking with Megan Taylor, HR consultant and attorney at Taylor HR Group. I have a feeling we're going to have you back on again and stay up to date on these issues. I hope you don't mind doing that with
Not at
us.
all. I mean, it is such a moving target that what might be best practice today or a good idea even for an employer today, it might not be the same in 2 or 3 months. So it's important for employers to
For a
pay
month.
attention.
So,
Right.
Megan, if someone's looking for you, how would they find you?
They can email me at mtaylor@taylorhrgroup.com. Also, my website, www.taylorhrgroup.com, has other information about COVID-19 and how we can help with various issues that employers might have in this area.
Great. Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for all that information. Stay well and stay
Thank you.
healthy.
Same to you.
And remind everybody, this is Radio Entrepreneurs. We'll be right back with more stories.